Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 81, Just Get Started. Welcome to 2021, and as you know, all month we are focusing on the power of possible. And this week, it's all about getting disciplined, focusing on our self-discipline, our commitment, and our follow-through. Because last week we talked about pulling the trigger and not procrastinating anymore. And getting started is great, but discipline is what makes it real, makes it sustainable, and discipline is ultimately what will get us to the finish line. I first, though, want to take a moment and talk about, at least in my country, it's been a very difficult week and a very emotional week and a very scary week, and perhaps with more worry to come. And with the pandemic getting worse, I just want to say that a lot of us are struggling emotionally, physically, both. And my heart goes out to you. Hopefully, you can sit and listen today, and this can be a brief diversion into something a little healthier and something a little more positive. All right, so being empowered means trusting ourselves enough to make things happen that we say we want to make happen in order to honor ourselves. That's what owning it is all about. Owning the process, not just owning what you want to do, but owning the how. How are you going to do it? And are you going to stick with it when it gets boring or it gets tough or you get tired or obstacles show up? So we all know what discipline is, and I think by now you probably have a good sense of how disciplined you are or can be around certain things, perhaps. Maybe you're very disciplined in some areas and not in others. It's always helpful to kind of take a look at why, perhaps. I'm sure by now you also know how struggling with self-discipline can cause issues, can cause stress, can cause anxiety, can cause problems in relationships. Because functional trust remembers that someone can trust you to do what you said you were going to do. In other words, you were going to follow through. So discipline is follow through on the daily, on the weekly, on the monthly basis. We can have tons of adrenaline to get started out, but it's discipline that keeps us committed when the adrenaline wears off, right? When the honeymoon's over and we still got to do it. All right, so we want to talk today a little bit about why we might struggle with self-discipline and why it sounds so simple and yet it can be so difficult. And so one of the things I want to talk about is your perceptions of what discipline really means. Now, some of these beliefs, like we've talked about before, are not on the surface. They are underlying core beliefs that we may have and not even realize that we have them, nor do we want to admit that we have them, right? So if you grew up with control, if you had controlling parents who were either abrasive, aggressive, strict, yelled a lot perhaps, very harsh punishments, or if you grew up with covert control, with being guilted to death, feeling responsible for your mother's feelings because you were late, that kind of thing, the boundary blur, then your thoughts and your feelings and your needs and your boundaries were not honored. Your parents didn't detach and let you choose between the bennies and the consequences. No, they instead inserted themselves, either to micromanage you or to make you feel responsible for their happiness because you got a D in science. So boundary blur is the big key point here. And so we don't like that control, because our boundaries are violated. Physically, perhaps, if you were physically punished, emotionally, if you were raged at or emotionally punished but they didn't speak to you for a week. Bottom line is, you don't like control. And for you, maybe the adjective you have attached to discipline is someone's trying to control me. And I don't want that. So what you will see is procrastination. You will see promise to do something, very avoidant, but not really want to do it, and therefore forget or don't make it happen. Don't follow through. Okay, just to have some sense of false control, like I'll show you, I'll do it at the 11th hour kind of thing. Or I want to go play, or I just want to be creative, or I don't want to be hemmed in by a schedule or by boundaries or deadlines. And so there's this adolescent pushback. Even if we're 42, we can still be doing this stuff. So it's rather emotionally immature because that's about control out there. If we're still responding to out there when we're grown up, we got a problem. It's important to grieve this now. If we're shame-based, if your family shamed you in whatever ways we just talked about or even other ways we haven't mentioned, if you just felt like crap and not good enough, also is a big trigger to abhor discipline. Because what if you tried to be disciplined and all you heard was, well, you're not doing that right, or you should have done it this way, or I don't even think you're going to follow through. You're probably just going to forget like your brother does. So they blow it up for you and they shame you and they tell you who you are and how you're motivated and how you're not motivated, what you think, feel, and need. And I believe that this needs to be grieved, like really grieved completely, so that you can heal some of the distorted beliefs that you may still hold about yourself, because you deserve better. You don't have to carry that around anymore. But I think we have to grieve that we didn't get different, that we didn't receive the encouragement, the affirmation, the love, that we were believed in and trusted, that they could detach and allow us just to have our own process. So think about what attachments you have to discipline and what you really deep down think about it, what it means for you. And does it come easy for you or do you struggle? And what can you point back to as to maybe some of the culprits? To be helpful, I thought here are some affirmations that you can repeat every day, several times a day for days on end, hint, hint, to help change your mind and help change those beliefs. So if you do the cognitive part in your head and the grief work in your heart, it'll really help you heal a lot of what you used to believe about yourself. The first one is, and it's in the present as if it's already happening, I am becoming more disciplined. I am becoming more disciplined. Doesn't mean I'm already perfectly disciplined today. It means I'm working on it and I'm getting better and better at it. The next one is, I see discipline as the boundary work that'll make what I want real and make it possible. Discipline is the reality. The discipline to put money away to save for the car that you want. The discipline to get up every morning and work out. The discipline to work on boundaries. The discipline to show up to therapy and coaching. The discipline to read about being healthier. The discipline to follow through on a promise when you don't want to. Another one, I am appreciating the feeling of accomplishment. I am appreciating the feeling of accomplishment. So you're starting to get a taste of what it feels like and what it felt like in the past to climb the mountain and come down the other side. To feel the fruits of your labor, to look at the clean house, the clean car, the bills are paid, losing 5 pounds, feeling stronger, feeling more rested because you went to bed on time. And finally, I can still be creative and free and be disciplined. I still can be creative and free and be disciplined. And so, some of changing our beliefs about discipline means we have to affirm that it doesn't mean you can't be creative. It doesn't mean you can't be spontaneous. It doesn't mean you can't have a day off and kick back and do nothing. It's not all or nothing, and it's not black and white. Being disciplined doesn't mean that you can't have fun and that you can't be silly and that you can't relax. So think about your attachments there, your adjectives. I encourage people to write down 4 or 5 adjectives without thinking too hard of what comes up when I say, what is self-discipline to you? What does it mean to you? Okay. How do we do this? How do we become more disciplined? No matter where you are on that continuum, it's also easy to fall off the horse if you were doing great. So how do we become more disciplined? Well, first thing we want to do is create a very simple plan and the steps to execute it in reality. Don't do vague. Please, don't do vague. There are reasons for this. Vague allows you to kick the can. It allows us to cheat. It allows you to do it half-assed. Vague allows you not to commit. For us to be specific is very vulnerable and committed because it makes it real. It makes it ours. If I say, I really want to lose 10 pounds and therefore I want to work out 4 days a week, that makes it real. What if I put it out there and I fail? What if I put it out there and someone ridicules me? So it's very vulnerable. And the thing is, when we're vague, we never feel good about ourselves because the real self is like, yeah, right. Are you going to do that or not? You're either going to get off your duff and do it or you're not. Which is it? Are you committed? Can we trust you? And we meaning, can we trust ourselves? Number 2, get real specific. Do the what. What exactly will you do and why this first as opposed to something else? You've given it thought. Why is the second thing second and the third thing third? We don't have to get it perfect. We just want to get real about it. We're like, I don't want to go car shopping until I put some money away. Not going to work out until I talk to my partner and see how our schedules pan out for that. I'm going to make it possible. These are boundary conversations that a lot of people are afraid to do because they're conflict averse. But that's what opens the door and makes it happen after we ask for what we need. So do the what. Let's get real about it. Then do the when. Schedule it or it won't happen. If you don't put it on your schedule, you don't have to commit to it. And you know how life is. It's going to show up and it's going to get in the way. Put boundaries around the time and energy in order to help it be successful. And life isn't perfect, but I think we're making it more plausible and feasible when we do this. What about the where? And be very clear. Make sure you have time, space, money, and energy, and fewer interruptions. So if you're going to do work on your writing, let's say, where are you going to do that? Are you going to do it in the middle of the living room where everyone wants your attention and then you're frustrated with them because they're being too noisy? No. We're going to figure out a place where you can go, where you have quiet. During COVID, we're finding really creative ways to do that, aren't we? And finally, the how. The logistics and the magic. How are we going to make this happen? Now, caveat here, just figure it out the best you can. Sometimes we have to let go of the perfect how, and you people know I'm talking to you. Yes, you, the ones who have to have all your ducks lined up. Not necessary. Boil it down to the basics, okay? If you have tennis shoes, you can go for a walk. That's the how. If you're trying to save money, no more Starbucks. That's the how. You don't have to know maybe the rest of the story just yet. Like, wow, I won't buy coffee, but is that going to be enough to get me there? No, just get started. But do the how, but let go of the perfect, because you will be surprised that when you get started, how opportunities will come and help make it easier for you to pull this off. Number 3, make sure you have backup plans so you have no excuse to throw in that towel. Like, what if your run is messed up with bad weather, let's say? Do you have a backup plan already thought about, already made possible for you to exercise? There's a reason for this. We've talked before about the difference between fear and choice. And when we're in fear, it's fight or flight or F it. We're more likely to give up. But if we know we have a plan B and a C, and know it's not optimal, but we can stay the course because we're still working out, like in the previous example. Or maybe we did buy a coffee, but maybe we save money and don't eat out tomorrow night. And so we're still saving. Plan B. Now, you don't want too many plan Bs so you can kind of get way off track. But we need a backup plan so that we can feel like we're still on course and we're still being disciplined. And that we remind ourselves we don't run the universe and monkey wrenches are going to get thrown in. We know this. Number 4, what's allowed to get in the way? This is really important. Anytime you set a goal, you have to write out, okay, what am I going to allow to get in the way? What's an emergency? What constitutes an emergency? Because guys, I think by now I've heard them all. Believe me, I have heard all the excuses, I think. I've heard like, well, so-and-so had to do X, so I couldn't do Y. They put it on other people. I didn't feel well since I stayed up too late and ate all that ice cream. Or others are having a rough time adjusting to my changes. Mary, I really can't do this. This is just stressing out my family. Excuses. What's a real emergency? Maybe a real illness. Maybe someone in your family is very ill, so you can't go for that walk this morning. You're home taking care of your daughter with a fever, of course. But get it straight with you, what's allowed to get in the way. That way it's kind of clear cut and you don't beat yourself up and guilt yourself. And you also don't find ways to allow others to take you off course, even when they don't realize they're doing it. So get clear about that. Falling off the horse doesn't count. Get back on. That is not allowed to be an excuse. Sorry. Number 5, get binary. Get binary. Look, you either want to do this or not. You are either ready physically, psychologically, emotionally, financially, or not. And that's not a slam, guys. It's simply an acknowledgement of reality. And I think it's better to be honest with ourselves here than let ourselves down sooner or later. There's a lot of reason why you hear people say, well, I tried that like 4 times. I went to the gym 4 different times in 2 years, but I couldn't sustain it. And I'm like, you weren't ready. There were things in the way that you had to decide on. These are decisions that we make. AKA, we decide whether we're going to let someone else's crap get in the way of us taking care of ourselves. We decide whether we're going to allow other people's opinions of us get in the way, because essentially what you're doing is you're letting other people decide your well-being. You're letting other people's discomfort with your changing to dictate whether you make good changes for yourself or not. And when you say it out loud, it sounds awful, doesn't it? This happens 24/7, 365, all over the place. To people you wouldn't even imagine would allow that to happen to them. It happens. So take a good look at that for yourself. Not to beat yourself up, of course, but to say, am I allowing what's going on with others in my life to dictate what I'm doing? And what I encourage my clients to do is negotiate it out. Talk to your partner ahead of time. Don't do a drive-by on them. Say, look, I'm really thinking about getting fit. I'd like to start walking in the morning 4 days a week. Can we talk about that? Let's talk about your self-care too while we're at it. It should always be even and balanced. Negotiate it out. Number 6, get some accountability. Because guys, we may start out strong, but left to our own devices and isolation, we can slide backwards. Commit to a few folks or join a group of like-minded travelers. Check in. Tell on yourself when you drop the ball. And share your successes and how good it feels. I want you to share your real fears along the way too. And that's assuming these are safe people who can do the same. Show up to make this real as well. Okay, because we can ask people to hold us accountable, but if we don't show up or if we forget to call them back or we don't make time to talk to them, we have to schedule that in or text them or something, then we're not using it. I like the double layer of accountability. First, having the resources, those wonderful folks, and then actually utilizing said resource. That's what matters. You know, we tend to avoid or fall off the radar when we aren't proud of ourselves. That's why we need their encouragement. But then we avoid when we screw up because we don't want them to see we haven't made the progress we wished for. And we have to remember it's not about them. This is what we want for ourselves. Getting specific with them makes it official, makes it real, makes it tangible, and of course, maybe both scary and exciting. Share that with them too. I know when I first started this podcast, I had a lot of anxiety about it. It was a big thing I'd never done before. And I am so grateful, and you guys know who you are, my friends who held my hand through the beginning and cheered me on and still stop and encourage me here and there. And I really appreciate that. And the final thing is, don't worry, you can tweak things along the way too. This doesn't have to be perfect or horrible. 7, start with 1. One task, one small change, make that list. Once you get that one down, add another. So don't immobilize yourself by saying, I want to work out, then I want to clean out the entire house and save a bunch of money. Okay, don't. I'd rather you do one thing at a time. What feels next? What can you do? Yeah, put the most possible thing on the list first, okay? You're going to dig out slowly but surely. You will. And every step you take empowers you to take the next one. Because this way, you feel less overwhelmed. You're experiencing you doing that thing, that first thing. You see the fruit. You start to want more and better as you go. And you allow the process to help you be more disciplined too. Okay, so making the plan that we just talked about is part of the discipline. It's part of the boundary work. It's called structuring. It's about setting ourselves up for success, planning it out, getting thoughtful. Not planning it out perfectly, but getting real and getting that roadmap going. All right, so remember from last week when we talked about just starting? Just get started with discipline too. Even if you have fear, even if you need to do the grief work, do it at the same time that you just get started practicing. Because when you practice discipline, and even if you have a bad week, next week's a new week, man, you can start over again. It's great. You're going to show yourself that you can do and feel and be different. But let's get a little motivation going, shall we? Remember last week we said nothing gets better until we start. I fleshed this out a little bit more for us this week. Last week I said our health won't get better, we won't lose weight until we start eating better and get moving. And this means if you don't grab some discipline, you won't eat better, right? You got to have some discipline. You got to make some choices along the way. 2, our finances won't improve until we get serious about making, saving, and investing more. This means make it easier for you to save. How are you going to do that? Discipline around your spending, right? 3, our relationships won't get better if we don't get better communication boundaries and connection skills started. This means committing to change and making it happen. Make the phone call, read the book on how to communicate, hire the coach, join the Facebook group, figure it out. Make it real. 4, our homes won't be less stressful, we talked about last week, until we start tackling the clutter, the repairs, or the decorating, or all the above. And I want to encourage you, this means start with one room and finish it before moving on to the next. Be disciplined. Be realistic. Keep it simple. And 5, our self-esteem won't get better until we start honoring and making real what we really want to change. This means that every time you don't follow through, your self-esteem suffers. You've let yourself down, your self-trust decreases. And your motivation does too, I think. So today we talked about making it real by getting really disciplined. We broke it down into bite-sized aspects of accountability and specificity to make it real and actionable. Because I think we can be more disciplined if we don't run into a bunch of snags. I really want to encourage you to be loving and nice to yourself at the same time. Give yourself the commitment that you deserve. You deserve to try this. You deserve to give discipline a chance, and you deserve to put your own spin on it and figure out what works for you as you go. Don't compare yourself to others. If you have friends who are more disciplined and you want to emulate, that's cool. But don't be hard on yourself. You can't shame yourself into being more disciplined. It's the other way around. Discipline means you love yourself enough to commit and follow through, and to do it when you have a headache, and to do it when you're tired, and to not give up and don't give in. You deserve to follow through on your goals and to honor yourself. You deserve to feel better, to have more financial security, to have better relationships. You deserve to feel good about yourself. We all do. Thank you so much for joining me today. May you stay healthy. May you heal from this week if you live in my country. Stay grounded. Hold on to hope. We need it. Focus on the good in yourself and in others. Focus on the truth. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com and sign up for the newsletter each Tuesday. That's where you'll get the bonus downloads from the episodes and all the other great information. All right, pay it forward. Keep focusing on loving you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.